Are we all connected up?
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, we should be good to go. Can you guys hear us okay?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the June 16th, 2022 Tennessee Transportation Council Planning Committee meeting. My name is Scott Levasich, Monroe County Department of Transportation, at-large member, the chair. I will be facilitating this meeting with Jim Stack on my right. Jim would like to open the meeting with some rules of the conduct here, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. So this meeting is being held hybrid. We have some people in the room and people joining us online. The meeting is being recorded so that we can archive it and make it available for viewing later. Members of the public are able to observe through our publicinput.com platform. They will be able to interact with the committee at the appropriate times in the agenda. We have staff monitor any comments that come in, be able to share. And those who have items on the agenda are connected via Zoom to be able to interact directly with the committee. Within the agenda, there's two separate places for the public to weigh in. Mentioned, any comments from the public will be recorded and will be archived along with the video. All right, so the public is joining us on, and we made this information available to our meeting announcements. They can interact with us via chat on the platform. They can send a text, they can record a message, they can open up an audio bridge and talk directly via a number, or they can send an email. Next. That's just instructions on how members or audience could interact, and those are built on their page. Next. And here's our agenda. A roll call. Okay. Alex, will you lead us?
Sure. Thanks, yeah. Genesee County, Tim Hens. Genesee County, Livingston County, Angela Ellis.
Here.
Monroe County Legislature, Mr. Ebert. Ontario County, Bill Wright. Orleans County, John Papanetti.
I'm here.
Seneca County, Mitch Rowe. Wayne County, Kevin Rooney.
Here.
Wyoming County, Devin Blue.
Here.
Yates County, Douglas Rapley. Monroe County Executive, Tom Fries. Right here. County Executive. Well, for the County Executive, yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
For the Monroe County Planning Board, Rochelle.
Here.
Monroe County at large, Scott.
Here.
Monroe County, from Monroe County at large, David Lindsay. For the City of Rochester Mayor, Rich Barron.
Present.
For Rochester City Council, James Smith. For the Rochester City Planning Commission, Kevin Kelly. City of Rochester at large, Dominic Ficetti. Empire State Development Corporation, Stephen Golden. New York State GTC, New York State Department of Transportation, Chris Reeve.
Here.
Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council, Richard Sutherland.
Yeah.
RGRTA, Bill Carpenter.
Eric Farr for Bill Carpenter.
We do not have any of our federal partners with us today. Thanks,
Yeah,
Scott.
thanks, yeah. We have a forum? Okay, good. All right, this time is our first public forum. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the committee before our proceedings today?
Good morning. We do have 13 total viewers and a couple of people that have called in via phone, but nobody's indicated a desire to speak or share a comment at this time.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lori. Anyone present?
Well, thank you.
All right, we move on to the next agenda item, approval of minutes of the May 12th, 2022 Planning Committee meeting. I would like a motion to approve. And I would remind you that our folks online are welcome to move and second motions as well. Thank you, Tom moved it. Can I get a second?
Second, this is Rochelle.
Okay. We'll take Michelle. Chris.
Oh, I didn't see.
No, no problem, no problem. Okay, are there any comments or revisions that would be suggested to these minutes before we approve them? Hearing none, we'll accept these by consensus unless there's anyone opposed. So is there anyone opposed to approving the minutes? Hearing none, we have approved the minutes. Thank you. Next up, announcements and old business.
Okay, so Douglas Repoli has been designated the planning committee member for Gates County. He's the new highway superintendent. And also apologize for not having it on the screen, but late breaking news to me, Richard Sutherland has been appointed as the executive director for Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council, no longer acting director. So congratulations, Richard. And that's my announcement.
Good, thank you, Jim. That brings us up to action items, number 5. First up is Unified Planning Work Program. Actions considering project scopes of work. First one we have, and I would like to have these approved as both projects approved as a single action, if that's all right with the members of the committee. First up is the Arcade Multi-Use Trail Study. Larry Kilburn is going to walk us through that.
Yes, thank you. I'm Larry Kilburn, Superintendent of Public Works for the Village of Arcade. And like many communities, interest in walking and hiking and biking has been growing here in Arcade. Many people use our Village Park Road, for example, and they use it all seasons of the year. Our snowplow drivers, in fact, talk about the care they have to take when they're plowing the park roads because there are people out walking even by 4 o'clock in the morning on a snowy winter day. And recently, a walking and running club was established by the Arcade Elementary School, and I can vouch for that. My grandkids have been taking advantage of that. And then I've been told that a hiking club has been formed at the Pioneer High School. Now, going back in 2005, we completed a strategic plan for downtown in which we addressed the clearly stated need of the community to become more walkable. And since then, we've received and completed, well, actually finishing up our third SRTS project that's allowed us to improve the sidewalks and establish some short walking trails. However, we still have no well-developed long-term plan. In village board meetings, the board has expressed ideas about extending our village sidewalk system to expand walking and jogging opportunities to the west end of the village. We're also interested in investigating the possibility of creating a small park that would overlook the entire village. However, we need to extend sidewalks there to provide safe access. And within the last couple of months, we've obtained easements to allow a new trail to be constructed along Clear Creek from the village park to Grove Street that would provide a more scenic route from the park to one of our village streets. Now, in 2016, the Genesee Transportation Council Regional Trails Initiative identified a Rails with Trail project that would link the village of Arcade to Beaver Meadow Audubon Society in Java. It's about 11.5-mile trail running northeast from the village. About 20 miles to our east, there are many segments of the Genesee Valley Greenway Trail that have been completed. And about 10 miles to the south and east is the North Country Trail, which connects Vermont to North Dakota. We have multiple bike trails all around us, but they're miles away. So currently our residents travel by car simply to be able to take advantage of hiking and biking. So as interest in the hiking and biking as a recreational activity is increasing, we need to have a plan for the connection between Arcade and these regional trails. So this study will provide the direction the village needs to coordinate our efforts in developing a cohesive plan for improving and expanding to pedestrian bike facilities in and around the village and connect the village to the multiple other systems in the area. So I look forward to working with the Genesee Transportation Council, the Project Advisory Committee, and then a consultant to be selected that'll examine our existing conditions and identify some realistic plans to enhance safe hiking and biking in Arcade. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Larry. Any questions of Larry's presentation? All right, thank you. Next up,
Thank
next up we have Village of Warsaw Active Transportation Plan. James Bragg is here to walk through that.
Good morning, my name is James Bragg. I'm the Senior Planner for the Wyoming County Department of Planning and Development. This is a joint effort a collaborative effort between the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce, the Village of Warsaw, and the Town of Warsaw. The Wyoming County Department of Planning and Development will assist and provide technical support to the consultant team and advisory committee. Our goal is to create a forward-thinking plan to increase pedestrian and bicyclist mobility through a safe, comfortable, interconnected multimodal network for people of all ages and abilities. We really want to emphasize connecting pedestrians to preferred destinations and protecting them from roadways featuring high motor vehicle volume and speed. To give a background, Warsaw is the center county seat and is the center of all essential government, commercial, and public safety services. We have a hospital which provides regional medical needs. The Village of Warsaw is a very strong historic 19th century multi-story main street. The design challenge for this project is the two state routes, State Route 19, which runs from north to south, and State Route 28, which runs from east to west. These create barriers cutting off various sections of the city. It creates dangerous conditions for pedestrians and uninviting environment for those on bikes. Moreover, the transportation systems have not evolved to meet the emerging needs created by new development in the town of Warsaw. Moreover, there's steep slopes, which makes connectivity to natural features and preferred destinations very difficult to achieve. The benefits is to increase healthy and active lifestyles, improve safety, access, and connectivity for all modes of travel, promote and protect the historic built environment of the village, and mitigate the likelihood and severity of traffic conflicts. What we are trying to do is to have an inventory of existing conditions and have a needs assessment with a final active transportation plan with a very vigorous public participation that will include seniors and our school district.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any questions? Okay, thanks very much. At this time, I'd like a motion to approve both of these scopes of work. Thanks. Chris, I'll take your second. Thank you. Okay, any additional questions or comments to offer to both of these presenters? All right, hearing none. Again, we'll approve these by consensus. If there's anyone opposed, say so now. Hear none, so these are approved. Ready to go, so get to work. Thank you. Hey, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, thank you, Larry.
Larry, you're welcome to stay on if you want, but you're not expected.
Okay, next up is we have recommendations to the GTC board, accepting reports as evidence of some UPWP tasks. First one up is the Genesee Finger Lakes scenario tool. I believe Alex is going to guide us through this information.
Thank you, Scott. The objective of this study was to deploy a scenario planning tool that would both help GTC activities as well as support other planning initiatives throughout the region. There was a synergy with having an overall regional framework that would analyze the impacts of land use and also its impact on transportation as well, and the interrelated connections that they have. This project was something that we developed in 2 phases. Because there's a range of scenario planning tools when we kicked off the project. From a technical standpoint, some of these were software programs, some of these were software as a services. So really, phase one was particularly exploratory. So taking a look at some of the status of regional land use inventories, and then kind of looking at a tool, selection of a tool, something that balance both capabilities and accessibility for regional users, planning stats around the region. Phase two is really based on deployment of the tool. First of all, scenario planning tools are really based on polygonal land uses. So really to have an overall palette of regional place types. So what the land uses in a village or a town or a city, they kind of having those kind of be of the same typology. Second was a calibration of some analysis modules. So with the choice of going with urban footprint software as a service, making sure that we put regional baselines and other assumptions calibrated into some of these key performance indicator modules we see here. Development of two 2050 growth scenarios for supporting based on 2050 projections, GTC's 2050 projections. So developing allocations of both baseline and an alternative growth scenario for reference use for others. Doing two case studies, which we'll go into next, and also training for regional staff, which has been supported, which is well attended, and we'll look to do some more again. So I just want to highlight two case studies that were developed as part of the project. The first of all was Genesee County. Genesee County, as part of their comprehensive plan update, they were assessing their smart growth zones, something that they had implemented as part of the Monroe County Water Authority expansion into the county to manage infrastructure expansion and costs. This was a debated topic as they were going through their comprehensive plan update in the past year. And so they wanted to look at two scenarios based on, if STAMP and the future 2050 projections, what that build out would be is if STAMP would be a real magnet for growth and expand along that major corridor from Batavia to the STAMP complex, or if potential future growth would be focused within the city of Batavia and the other smart growth zones really focused around villages and the county as well. So the analysis modules run, and that there was really some of the fiscal impact module is really one of the key factors, is that the amount of tax revenue from new development that occurred as part of really redevelopment within the existing smart growth zones generated 4 times the revenue per acre. So for less, so there'd be less impact on expenses for the infrastructure expansion and more revenue generated per acre from that new development as well. And also to the left, there were other indicators as well as less energy use, reduced greenhouse gas expansion emissions, and particularly as well, a dramatic difference in the amount of agricultural land that would have to be given up for development. The second case study, one of the analysis modules that was developed was an additional post-processing model on the public health assessment module. So with changes to the built environment by using changes in the place types in the region, so from current built environment to the 2050 built environment, would have assessed transportation changes, changes in mode choice, changes in people walking, biking, use instead of driving. And so that takes from the built environment's impact on transportation to then transportation's impact onto health outcomes. So the public health assessment module really connects that third pearl in the string to really understand some of those changes. And also, really particularly in this case, even though there are going to be some proposed changes and really some of the transportation network in the area, Really some of the big impacts that we'd see in the Bull's Head and West Main Street corridor would be particularly in green space. As we can see, the green space index, kind of a composite index of the amount of street trees and park area. It's really lacking compared to the city as a whole and even the county as a whole. And kind of derived from that is then a resulting cost of illness that's partially the green space index, is multivariate cost based on demographics as well. But really isolating for changes in street trees, park space, by increasing the amount of, by using some of those assumptions, there were some significant effects in chronic diseases and obesity, coronary heart disease, blood pressure, and type 2 diabetes. It could really drive down, it would have significant reductions in healthcare spending in that focus area. Potential applications, GTC continues to have a license agreement and is available for use for all UPWP studies. So GTC, we have access to the tool. If there is a partner that would be interested in using this to explore some of their growth scenarios or maybe looking at a particular analysis module, please let us know. Use your comprehensive plans, maybe some actual transportation plans, looking at some growth scenarios, greenhouse gas projections. So please feel free to reach out and, pick my brain on any opportunities that we may be able to assist in your plans.
Okay, great. Very good, Alex. Thank you. So these are the tools, assessments that we use as part of these various studies, and then agencies can make decisions based on the information they glean from that. It's to their best interest how they want to pursue.
Absolutely. I mean, hopefully we're moving towards more quantitative assessment of the things that we've kind of alluded to and have sort of talked with our hands, and now we can hopefully have some really good numbers, particularly talking about, some of the potential impacts. I mean, like talking about changes in mode share, talking about changes in localized air quality improvements, water and energy use. We can begin to assess those at a more granular level.
Right. Okay. Because what struck me is Genesee County, the sample there, business as usual showed a significant amount of development, which from an economic factor could be good for the county. But you got to balance it with all the other factors where the smart growth one showed it more managed, but not as much. So that's a decision that would go into their process.
Absolutely. And I actually had a chance to speak with Felipe at Genesee County Planning last week, and he said that analysis was the kicker for them to maintain their smart growth zones.
Right.
I mean, that was really eye-opening for them, and that was the driving factor for them to continue to maintain the smart growth zones they have and really maintain the core outlines that they have.
Right. Okay. Very good.
I just want to add a commentary because I had an opportunity to present on this at a national APA conference. So Alex had alluded to the Olsett neighborhood study. And just so everybody knows, the city of Rochester has proposed a project for TIP. And Rich, please add on or correct me if I misspeak, but within the concept is a much more inviting pedestrian realm, make it more comfortable for walking, but also, Alex mentioned the analysis showing street trees, like tree cover making a difference. The city is looking to significantly increase the tree cover in this area. I don't know that there's, within the whole corridor, the West Main Street corridor, there's opportunity for park space, but at this intersection of Genesee and Broad and West Main and I think it was Fifth Road. But the city is looking to move forward with recommendations that can make a difference in the health of the residents in the area.
Okay, Thanks, Jim. Any other questions or comments of Alex? Okay, thank you, Alex. And I forgot to mention ahead of time, there's two actions here. We'll take both of these actions in a single vote. So next up is the Village of Perry Transportation Safety and Access Study. And Rick Hausler, I believe, is gonna talk us through that one.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Phenomenal. Well, I'm really happy to be here, and I loved hearing Alex's presentation, and in general, just I wanted to thank the GTC for all of the work that you do in the region. It's definitely close to my heart, and I only interact with it in different ways and in various ways, but I see the pieces all coming together, and I'm excited. Here in Perry, if you can go to the next slide, we've been working really closely with your organization through this UPWP funded study program for a while, and each time it leads to action. That is our mode. In 2008, the Main Street Circulation, Accessibility, and Parking Study, which is really a Main Street master plan, and that got implemented through a TAP grant in 2013. It was received, and it was done by 2015. Transformative traffic calming, bump outs, and planted islands, pedestrian amenities, solving drainage problems, and really just enhancing the experience, effectively doubling parking by making it easy for people to cross the street, really making downtown a place for people again. And we have seen over 30 new businesses downtown, 36 new businesses actually since 2005, as those storefronts have been filling up, new residents downtown. So that has been an enormous success, and the study was a big part of getting that rolling. Another long-running piece has been the village's commitment to Silver Lake Trail as a recreation corridor. Perry is a village 5 or 6 block downtown, about 4,000 people in the village alone, and it's wedged between Silver Lake to the west, a short walk away, and Letchworth Park to the east. This speaks to the natural goal of a recreation corridor, and built on an old railroad passageway. We again took advantage of your offer to help support a master plan 2017. We put that together. That included routes around the lake, as well as a connection from the lake through the woods, along a creek, various public access ways to downtown, and a master plan to push it right through the village and out the other side to Letchworth. And then we implemented that too. Phase 1 was public beach improvements, which we've used a variety of funds to complete that work in 2020. We're completing now a TEP-funded $1.4 million corridor to basically go from that beach to the creek right downtown. And we're using private funds through Ralph Wilson program and a few other programs to continue pushing it with another bridge downtown and going outward. So that master plan, again, is being implemented. The village does these works, builds momentum, capacity, and consensus, and then we act. And that takes us to this study, which is our other commercial corridor, Center Street. Our 2 commercial corridors, Main Street and Center Street, form a Y. Center Street is an interesting mixed corridor, and we can go to the next slide for that. And we go to the next slide again. So other investments that we've been using, leveraging all of these, just to point out, the Silver Lake Trail Loop with Devin Blue could talk about, but the county is going to be leaning into these recommendations as well. So there's great collaboration in Wyoming County, and the county's on board with this multimodal approach. So widening and dedicated bike lanes on the routes as you see there in order to allow safe multimodal transportation, which will really complete this plan. Letchworth Gateway Villages is something I think is very important for you to be aware of. This is a regional multi-county, multi-municipality collaboration, originally formed by the municipalities around Letchworth, and we've expanded up and down the Genesee Valley So now it includes communities from Scottsville all the way down to Cuba. We've gotten 5 years of funding from the USDA, an executive director. We've formed an Explore Genesee Valley website, and really are telling the story of the region. And a lot of it is from a transportation standpoint. Our most current project is the Trail Towns Initiative, which is focused on connectivity and building trail capacity. So it fits right in with everything that we've been talking about here. Next slide. So on Center Street, we have this interesting corridor, which is, one segment is residential, another segment is highly commercial, and the third segment is kind of a hybrid. And it's been a neglected kind of ad hoc corridor from the beginning. As you can see, needs have been identified through a broad public process. Shown in that photo, some of the outreach we did on Center Street, where there's our local supermarket, but also through a steering committee, representatives from area businesses and residents from that corridor, with a focus on the pedestrian and bike facilities, traffic calming, of course. There are no sidewalks for the commercial segment, and the sidewalks on the residential segment are unsafe, too narrow, and have real challenges. Dipping down below the road in some parts, having no buffering at all from traffic, not even a shoulder in other parts. We want to improve safety. We want to improve drainage where it routinely floods right onto the road. And then take advantage of that northern gateway. What does that say about Perry as people arrive into our village? And then doing all of this, enhance those connections to those amenities that I talked about. Thanks. Next slide. This is the whole corridor, so you can kind of take it from the southern residential, the northern residential in the middle, and then the commercial district, which, as it says, minimal streetscaping, really no trees on the public way. It's a very unsafe pedestrian experience. I should point out that it is adjacent to our entire school campus. And so you've got students regularly crisscrossing there from school to the various commercial activities. There's no crosswalks. There's no safe way to get from here to there. Thank you. Next slide. Right, so let me find that on my notes here. Right, this is a little different than my.
This one's a little out of order, right? Let me just sweep the next one. There we go.
Yeah, so just kind of to take you through the different segments. If this is in reverse, we have the commercial concept. This is extremely exciting because I guess that lower left photo kind of tells it all. It's just pavement, just parking, the entire width of the businesses all the way through, and pedestrians and cyclists are really taking their life into their hands to move through here, which makes no sense from a business standpoint, from an economic activity standpoint, certainly from a multimodal standpoint. And so this plan finds a way to create a buffer, shoulders, sidewalks, plantings, lighting, more defined driveway access and delineation. This will all help with drainage improvements, keeping in mind places for snow storage, and then identifying kind of an end to all of this at the north end, the gateway feature as you enter into the village or exit from the village. Thanks. And as you move into the village, in this case, you've got improvements in this more traditional residential zone where the sidewalks are terrible, the drainage is terrible. So these studies really helped us to identify ways to improve the experience, connect with our regional trail system through all of this, deal with really antiquated steps that don't provide accessible travel. And this is for students as well as for residents. Thanks. And then as you kind of come right into the downtown is just off screen to the south here, but there's this little Mill Street, which is a short little stub of a street that currently has no sidewalks. It's also all pavement. So there's some improvements there to help link the residential neighborhood back to downtown. And then that connectivity that doesn't exist, where there used to be a trestle bridge from the old railroad tracks. We need to improve connectivity all the way through. So we identified all of that. And they're like 3 projects in one. As you can see, each one is a ton of work and a ton of opportunity. Thank you. So some images at Northern Gateway. Sidewalks right out to the edge, a sense of arrival, continuity. We have businesses out here. That driveway to the left actually leads to an employment base of 700 people. They are currently a short walk from restaurants and ice cream and a pharmacy and a grocery store and a bank, and they can't walk there. So this is be an enormous connection. Also, just off screen to the left is a Wyoming County Medical Center. Same thing. This is a great destination. Certainly should be walkable for the people that's serving. So, and that takes us right to the edge of the village. And then from there, you can see the change in character, the defined edges and shoulders and plantings. Thanks. So at the end of the day, the priority projects, because it added up to a lot. And so we did poll the community, we polled the steering committee, and we've identified some things that might be put first. That commercial capital improvement project that we were just looking at seems vital, functional from a drainage standpoint, from a safety standpoint. We have the sidewalks and crosswalks. The trestle that I mentioned is an area of discontinuity and is another priority project to make for safe transportation. And then sidewalk improvements all throughout the corridor. Those would be kind of the 3 top billings of this plan, but I see this plan as really guiding us through the next 20 years. We've been working hard for 20 years and we've seen enormous progress. Perry's actually turned its population around. We're restoring population. The latest 2021 numbers show an increase, which is not a common thing out in these parts. We're filling our storefronts. We're attracting young families, and Center Street is going to be seeing development pressure as our trajectory continues. And that's why this is really a time-limited opportunity to build on the vision of our comprehensive plan, to put in place how to realign Center Street's character and safety and walkability, deal with its multimodal accommodations and its infrastructure needs, and then its gateway potential. So I thank you deeply on behalf of Perry, the design team, CNS, the steering committee that I worked with, for the opportunity to get this plan in place. And I can assure you, we will be doing everything we can to move it forward.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Very good presentation. I'm just a quick question. Did you do any cost estimating with some of these improvements? Is it a range of what the scope might be?
I have that information with me.
Yeah, we have Kelsey and Seth from CNS here.
Yeah, so we kind of did overall costs, we broke down, we did it a lot of different ways, and I can give this to you today if you want. But looking at that northern commercial, if you go all in with the exception of the gateway, because that could be as grand, or, you know, as you're thinking, it's about 2.4 million if we project it out to construction cost in 2024, the best we can.
Yeah, okay.
And then for the northern residential, to replace the curb and sidewalk, to fix the retaining walls, we're looking at, in drainage improvements, we're looking at 2.6 million. And for the southern section, to do the curb and sidewalk, make some adjustments for the trestle stair connectivity, some lighting, wayfinding signage, all of that, 1.6 million.
Okay, all right. I'll do it. I was trying to get an understanding of the scope of the work.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, 20 years, 20-year plan.
20-year plan.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions from anyone for Rick?
I just want to throw a comment that, you know, one of the things that we always talk about is positioning for funding opportunities. I think this positions the village well, even beyond transportation funding opportunities, something like the downtown revitalization initiative or various economic development programs, Safer School. There's a lot of different programs that are out there that now they have something to point to that I think instills confidence in the decision makers that are evaluating grant applications. And, you know, just like we would with any of our communities, GTC staff is, you know, ready to lend a helping hand as Bill pursues various funding opportunities. But I think this report positions us well.
I would agree.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There are definitely multiple partners to partner with, and that will be our plan. And we will continue to look to your organization and a lot of the people in this virtual and physical room to help guide us, because it's a heavy lift.
Okay. And of course, DOT is a partner in this as well, NISDOT, and they were part of the process. You know, it's a state route through there.
Right.
Acknowledged, and you know, like I said, they were part of the study. So all the ideas that were presented here have already been vetted by ISOC before and their traffic and safety folks. And there's no showstoppers for sure. So,
Okay, great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to take a vote on these two actions. So I'd like someone to move the two together. Again, our online folks can move.
Scott, this is Rich. I'll move it.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
This is Kevin. I'll second.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. All right, and again, I will approve these by consensus, unless there's anyone opposed. Anyone opposed to approving these actions? Okay, they are approved. Thank you very much.
Rick, you're welcome to stay on. Not expected to, but
Okay.
I am busy soon.
Well, thank you. Thanks again for your help and support. I'll be seeing you.
Okay. Next up is item 5.3, recommendation to the GTC board concerning amending the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 Unified Planning Work Program to reflect the contribution of actual fiscal year 2021-2022 rollover amounts.
All right. So this is an annual activity we undertake when we adopt a new TIP. I'm sorry, a new UPWP. We include estimated rollovers for projects that we don't expect to be completed by March 31st. But due to the timing of when we have to prepare our draft UPWP and have our quarterly reporting, the expenses only reflect through September 30th, or the first 2 quarters of our fiscal year. But now that we've completed the fiscal year and completed the accounting activities, we can reconcile the budget amounts to what was actually expended. And those are laid out in Exhibit 1 that was in your meeting package. So within that table, individual projects that had adjustments between the estimated roller amounts and the actual roller amounts, you'll see in column B the actual expenses through the last 2 quarters. And then column C would show the new balance. You'll see several of the projects were fully expended, so their new balance went to 0. They would have been already presented for closeouts. That shows a fair bit of progress. You'll notice there's a few items that had actually positive amounts in the column B, and that really is a function of some adjustments we had to make. The RGRTA increase is related to the additional Federal Transit Administration funds that were made available through the bipartisan infrastructure law, and those that budget was finalized in March, and the appropriations came out subsequent to that. And RGRTA is looking to increase the amount of analysis they're able to do on their routes, and the UDC, the UPWP Development Committee concurred with using the funds that way. The increases to on the GTC line items are related to budget savings that free up funding for other projects. You may recall last year we created a healthcare contingency within the GTC staff budget, and the purpose of the contingency is to provide budget relief should we have somebody on staff experienced extraordinary medical expenses, such as the need for intensive care unit, which has happened, and due to the nature of the insurance we have through our JRTA, it's almost like a high deductible plan for businesses, so, but because we did not utilize that, thankfully, $100,000 is being returned to the budget. And, you know, typically we would, and as originally envisioned, this would be set aside as revenue for the next UPWP, but based on some emerging needs, identifying of opportunities, GTC staff proposed to the UPWP Development Committee, and they concurred, creating a new pedestrian facilities inventory subtask under our bicycle and pedestrian program. For those that have been around long enough, I think it was back in 2012, maybe a little earlier than that, we did a pedestrian facilities inventory where we had interns going out with clipboards and diagrams and actually measuring stuff. The tools are way more sophisticated now. But given the new emphasis on complete streets and the requirement for complete streets planning, interest among the communities, we thought it would be good to get a hold of this, the condition of our pedestrian facilities. So we anticipate this would be an ongoing effort, funded at $25,000 per year. This initial $25,000 would cover setting up the program and getting any kind of equipment we need for field measurements and, you know, tablets for data collection that would load things right up into mapping. And we've already had conversations with the City of Rochester's Department of Environmental Services to start there in support of some of the activities they have going on with their active transportation plan. And they already have a data set for the GIS that at least can centerline the sidewalks. So we thought we could start there, refine our process, and then as we refine that process, we'll be able to utilize it to support UPWP studies, working with other communities to go in and collect that data. And then that data is available for communities to use as they develop projects, as they develop plans, as assessments are done. Nobody will be required to use the data, but we have it available. So it's a little longer explanation we normally have to do each year, but I did want to point out this new task and the increase to the RGRT. With that, if there's questions on any of the other changes, I'm happy to answer.
So you said this facility will be an annual effort.
That's what we proposed to UDC, and they were content with it. So we would continue to fund it at $25,000 per year and use interns to collect that data.
Okay. Any other questions of Jim? Okay, we need a motion to approve this. Anyone? Tom, thank you. A second?
This is Rochelle, I second.
Thank you, Rochelle. Appreciate that. Okay, again, approved by consensus, unless there's anyone opposed. Is anyone opposed to this? Hearing none, it's approved. Thank you all. Move on to 5B, Transportation Improvement Program. The first actions are concerning modifying the fiscal years 2020 to 2024 TAP. We have two projects that I'd like to move as one vote concern planning committee resolutions. So these projects have been vetted by the TDC already. So unless, what I would propose is that we would move ahead with the vote unless there is someone who would like to hear some description or explanation of the projects. Hearing none, okay, I would like to have a motion to approve. And Reiner, our online folks can. Motion. Chris, thank you, moved it. Second?
This is Rochelle. I'll second it.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. And the next one. All right, again, by consensus, is there anyone opposed to approving these actions? Okay, they are approved. Thank you. Next up is recommendations to the GTC board concerning amendments to the fiscal year 2020-2024 TIP. There you see that on the agenda, they're listed A through Q. Again, these actions have been vetted by the TDC already, and I would propose that we group these all in one action. And then unless anyone would like a presentation or description of any of the projects listed. Okay, hearing none. Oh,
No. I was just gonna make a motion to move.
okay. Well, thank you, Rochelle. That was my next question. So
I'm right with you, Scott.
thank you, Rochelle. Rochelle moves it and Tom will second it. Okay. Again, by consensus, is there anyone opposed to approving these amendments? Okay, consider them approved. Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is the long-range plan. There are no items at this time. Correct. And then next up is related activities. Also no actions at this time. Brings us to reports. I will turn to Jim to start us off with the status of UPWP reports.
Okay, so I worked to try to bring the slides up to date, so save some time, but with strategic planning, our staff is staying informed of the various rulemaking that's coming out of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That's what we refer to as the bipartisan infrastructure law, so IIJA, BIL. Whenever you see either one of those, they're talking about the same thing. But we're also monitoring the release of funding opportunities, and we're sharing as appropriate. And later on, under the federal funding, I'll talk about a couple of those. With long range plan, no activity to report. The Finger Lake scenario tool was presented for closeout a short time ago. Staff technical assistance, Bob Williams has been working with the village of Sodas Point on a parking study essentially, and the village has agreed to a scope of work. An initial initial project meeting and walking tour was held yesterday, and the inventory is underway. Household travel data collection is a new project. Don't have any activity report yet. We are working internally on a scope of work. Complete Streets program. This is new. I alluded to a little bit a few minutes ago when Rick Hauser presented. We're waiting on guidance from Federal Highway Administration before advancing too much on this task. The only thing we know at this point is we have to use at least 2.5% of our planning funds for complete streets activities. But we have had some internal discussions about some data collection options that could support when you go out, what are all the different types of data you might collect. So again, waiting on some guidance from Federal Highway. The Finger Lakes Regional Resiliency Plan, again, a new requirement under the IIJA. It leads to a new funding program called Protect that helps implement resiliency projects. Waiting on guidance from FHWA before figuring out what we need to do with that. Travel time data collection program, that's our routine data collection through our vendor INRIX. No particular activity report. Occasionally we'll have analysis after major crashes and closures, but not recently. The Route 96 over Route 14 strategic divestment, no activity report. It really is something on my plate to get an RFP together. I previously reported that we put a draft to NISDOT and they provided some comments. Now we're just trying to strike a balance on what work will go in there. But hoping to have something out more fairly soon. The Tennessee Finger Lakes Regional Performance Measuring and Monitoring Evaluation System, really long name, but basically it's working with the Regional Traffic Operations Center on automating some dashboard information, data analysis that generates reports and things that they want to do anyways, but have always been labor intensive. So the database and dashboards have been programmed and have been delivered for initial review and testing. In essence, consider beta testing. And on June 28th, our TOC staff and GTC staff will be doing a review session on that, or at the location and testing those things out. The cross-asset highway bridge evaluation tool, no new activity there. And the regional freight plan update is a new project that we're starting to work on, scope of work, but nothing significant. That's the GTC project, so answer any questions people have.
Thank you. Any questions of Jim on any of the GTC efforts? All right. Brings us up to the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council.
So the Regional Land Use Monitoring Report for 2021, we are still waiting on a number of municipalities to respond to the survey. We actually, over the last 2 weeks, been encouraging the results and remaining municipalities to respond. We will utilize other methods to try and access data if that continues. The Complete Streets guidebook is in this kind of final drafting stage, and hope to be in the next short while a draft to be submitted for review with GD staff input. Last mile, I believe we're having a discussion and with GTC staff in the near future how that project will progress and what how it will be structured. And the regional fleet electrification study, I think that's an accurate understanding of where it is.
That was presented at the last meeting, so it's recommended for approval. And I do want to add on the Complete Streets, there is the staff is working on coordinating for a second round of public outreach in conjunction with Village of Perry. And the public meeting is tentatively scheduled for July 23rd. All right, and Perry was one of the pilot communities that tested that Complete Streets.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Any questions of the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council? All right. Livingston County.
Do we have anybody on Livingston County?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Angela.
Angela's here. Yeah, I can give an update on this one. So the RFP for consultant services is being finalized. The plan to release that is within the next 2 weeks or so, with an anticipated deadline towards the end of July.
Okay. Thank you, Angela.
Yep.
Monroe County. Rochelle, would you like to tackle your two first?
Sure. The land use, why not? Land use monitoring report. We are still trying to get information from just 2 villages. Ishen has been working on the database, and an interesting preliminary observation is that there is a lot of potential development in Monroe County. So we'll keep you posted on that one. And in terms of the active transportation plan, we are having a joint open house on June 29th at the Olmsted Lodge at Highland Park. It's joint with our comprehensive plan team. So we'll be doing the comprehensive plan update and the active transportation plan it's really the kickoff for the active transportation plan. We've been at little pop-up events and getting a lot of great input on our website. And, on the little board we take with us, people have a lot to say about biking and walking, and as you all know. And for our comprehensive plan, which we call Plan Forward, we have the goals and visions to present. So and we're really happy with our consultant at Tool. Everything's going well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Yeah, 19 of 36 locations have been completed from the 21 list. That's one more that has been completed since the last meeting, and 5 are being analyzed right now.
All right, thank you. Any questions of Monroe County? All right, brings us up to New York State Department of Transportation.
Joe covering these, you covered it last time.
Yeah, I can weigh in, Joe's absence. So, the Regional Traffic Operations Strategic Plan, consultant is collecting information for the inventory and needs assessment, and the next steering committee meeting is anticipated in mid-July. I already wrote my notes, he hasn't, so.
It's cut and paste.
Yeah, but then the audience can't see it, so. The City of Rochester Downtown Sign Assessment, scope of work was presented to the planning committee at the last meeting and approved. A draft RFP is being developed for review and comment among the stakeholders. And the ramp reconfiguration was presented for closeout at the last meeting and recommended to be accepted by the GTC board in 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you. Any questions on state projects? Ontario County?
I don't know if we have anybody on board, but I can update it. So, yeah, the Ontario County Planning Department's going through some staffing changes. They had the person that would have been the point person on this, Maria Rositsky, is retired. So the scope of work is under development to be presented at a future planning committee.
All right, thank you. Just to the City of Rochester.
Yes, thanks, Scott. The Project Advisory Committee held its kickoff meeting on May 25th. And also as part of that, we have a public engagement plan that includes multiple events upcoming over the next couple of days, actually beginning tonight at the Reconnect Rochester screening of a film on sustainable transportation at the Little Theater. We're also doing Zoo Brews at the Seneca Park Zoo, Juneteenth, Harbor Fest, and Jazz Fest, as well as sort of the public engagement. The consultant is also conducting the inventory of existing conditions right now, and the website has also been established, which is rocatp.com. So ROCATP is an active transportation plan.com for those who want to check it out.
Great, okay, thanks. A lot of outreach going on there, huh?
And I just wanted to add, I didn't want to say before, but just so everybody knows, the City of Rochester and Monroe County both work on active transportation plans concurrently, are doing this in coordination. By coincidence, the same prime consultant is working on that. So the consulting teams for the 2 projects are ensuring that they're not coming up with conflicting recommendations. So it's a nice synergy going on there.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Rich. Any questions of Rich on the city? RGRTA. Eric will update us here.
Okay,
Right?
so for task 8538, service performance monitoring and refinement, we continue to evaluate what changes we'd like to make. For June, we're only able to implement a slight extension to the Lexington on-demand zone. resource constraints, both from operator and vehicles, are kind of limiting us from making any other expansions to service at this time. Hopefully, once we get those issues resolved, we'll initiate some additional changes this fall. Task 8543, Rural Villages and City Local Study. That project is underway. So they had a kickoff meeting with VIA, and they're starting to analyze data and establish a survey and public participation strategy. For task 8544, that scope of work was approved at the last meeting. We're currently working with GTC to finalize the RFP to get that out on the street soon. And task 8553, en route charging feasibility study. They've identified their prioritized locations. They're gathering some data from us on ridership and route length to better evaluate the feasibility at each of these desired locations based on the length of those routes and stuff of that nature. I'm still hoping to have that project wrapped up in August.
I just wanted to add a comment to help manage expectations. The rural on-demand transit being a new project, the RFP process. A few years ago, there was a change in the oversight when FTA funds are used to procure professional services. So basically, at certain milestones along the way, GTC has to submit documents up to NISDOT main office, the MPO Bureau, to get their sign off. So when RGRTA or GTC for that matter needs to engage a consultant with FTA funds, it takes a little longer because we have these intermediate third-party approvals that have to happen. So I think if they could have moved quicker, they would have moved quicker. So don't want anybody to think it's anything on the part of RGRTA that is slowing down the project.
Fair enough. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Eric. Wyoming County. There.
I have something, Devin, if you want, I can weigh in on this.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
So a draft scope of work has been prepared internally for review and comment with stakeholders. But one of the things we're also waiting on is the full release of a statewide crash data reporting system, the CLEAR. And Alex, what's the acronym mean?
Crash location engineering analysis reporting tool.
Yeah, so basically it replaces the old accident location information system, combines several databases. But state is rolling that out. It doesn't make sense for us to do a whole lot of legwork when we know a new system. I think it's already been beta tested. We're aiming it on the release, right?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things like new changes and fixes that hear about each month with the safety working group. But we should be able to get it going for this plan. So
yeah, so that's where that one stands.
So Jim, a couple of things too. So we have our local road safety plan that there's recommendations from there that we'll be looking at implementing with this program, as well as we've kind of been doing our own research internally on some good corridors or intersections that may produce good projects. But hopefully this CLEAR program will be out soon. I've heard any day now for a couple months. So.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I'll bring us up to other agencies.
Okay, so the arcade multi-use trail feasibility study was presented for scope of work a short time ago and approved. The Canal Ponds Business Park connectivity study and scope of work was approved at the last meeting, and a draft RFP is being developed with the town. I think the town already submitted a draft to you, Jody, for review comment. All right, so that's moving along. Village of Perry Transportation Safety and Access Study. Mayor Hauser presented that for closeout a short time ago. The Victor Street Connectivity and Access Plan, an alternatives memo was revised based on the steering committee comments that were mentioned at the last meeting, and a final public meeting is scheduled for July 13th. Bay Industrial Park traffic optimization was presented for closeout last meeting and recommended for approval by the board in 2 weeks. The West Webster Hamlet Revitalization Plan is moving along. The first citizen committee meeting was held on May 18th, and the second steering committee meeting was held on May 31st, and the first round of public engagement is being organized. And Village of Warsaw active transportation plan, scope of work was presented earlier in the meeting and recommended. Can you advance the slide? Okay. With that, I'll answer questions about other agencies.
Any questions for Jim? Hearing none. On our agenda, next up is TAP staff modifications.
We've not had any staff modifications since our last planning committee meeting in May.
Okay, all right, very good. 6C, federal legislative and funding update.
All right, so with the federal budget finally being adopted in March, US DOT staff have been able to progress the rollout of new initiatives under the IIJA/BIL. And since our last meeting, the US DOT released the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, for the Safe Streets and Roads for All program on May 16th. Staff is reviewing that NOFO and participating in webinars, I believe one was yesterday or Tuesday, to try to better understand the initiative and potentially looking at a planning grant that will kind of duplicate to some extent what Wyoming County did for their safe routes or safe roads initiative, and look at maybe doing a multi-county effort in our region to take it beyond. We know the Monroe County has the high exit location program. We work with Wayne County to do something. We've got something going with Wyoming County, but we might be able to create something a little more useful and do it with some funding through US DOT. Also released just last Friday, the Bridge Improvement Program Notice of Funding Opportunity. We're reviewing those materials and we'll be posting some information to our funding opportunities page soon. And we're starting to also screen for potential projects, bridge projects that were submitted for the TIP that could potentially be candidates for this. There is a fair bit of criteria that US DOT is looking to basically use their investments to advance other initiatives along the lines of equity, public health, active transportation and the like. So they presented the criteria that they're going to be looking at, how they're going to rate things. Benefit cost analysis is one of the things that's coming into play. And really interesting in that, well, we don't have any large bridge projects, I don't think 100 million or more. But basically, we have to be looking at a minimum of $2.5 million for federal share. And benefit cost ratio analysis has to be conducted. And they say each state will get at least 2 bridges. That's not super encouraging. So I think we should be discerning as to what we submit. And if we look at their criteria and we can't get highly rated on all the criteria, I don't know that it's worth the effort to submit. So we'll work with the TIP Development Committee. In particular, for the first year, the federal fiscal year 2022, they're looking for projects that have already gone through preliminary engineering and just need funding for detailed design or acquisition and construction. They want to be able to get the money out the door quick. So if the project hasn't even started engineering, it's not going to get funded the first year. And this is going to be a recurring program every year. But like I said, we'll do some screening. We'll work with the TIP Development Committee. I think the bridges that have been submitted are probably our best initial candidate because we already have a fair bit of information. And applications are due September 8th, so we have some time. But, you know, let's get through our tip cycle and see what's funded first and see where we go from there. With that, I'll answer what I can on the brief read through I did earlier this week on VIP. Alex might be able to talk about safe streets and roads for all. Other than that, I encourage folks to keep an eye out on our funding opportunities page. We presented that in the past, or sort of that feel the onion. Okay, here's some information, click to get more, to get more, to get more. And folks can sign up for email notifications so that when we put out new information, we'll put out an alert that there's something posted.
The safe streets and roads for all, that they're looking for combined or joint requests.
There's a few categories, and Al could speak better to it than I can.
Sure, there's, the planning is to develop a comprehensive safety action plan. So I mean, it would kind of have some of the structure of like a regionalized strategic highway safety plan that the state does, with a couple of other features, particularly an aggressive target to reduce, if not a vision zero target for fatalities and serious injuries, as well as, you know, more of a public outreach component as well. It's not really or as part of the state's strategic highway safety plan. There's also capital projects too, for projects identified and prioritized as part of a comprehensive safety action plan. Since we don't currently have a comprehensive safety action plan, we aren't eligible to apply for the capital projects yet, but completing such a plan will allow any jurisdiction under GTC, assuming we do a 9-county comprehensive safety action plan, we could apply for rural, urban projects of all different, that meet really the emphasis areas of the plan.
Okay, so first step, get the safety action plan in place. That becomes the vehicle for future.
Yeah, apply. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you're.
And one of the things that we'll do, like I said, Alex just participated in a webinar yesterday, but you know, even so, we want to gauge what the potential likelihood of being successful in applying for a planning grant is worth the effort, because we did set aside funds for our IIJA implementation program, which we haven't yet identified how we would utilize those funds. Potentially doing this safety program could be one thing that we can do, and do it with our own internal funds instead of seeking external funds. But if there's a way to bring some external funds to the table, and we have expectation of success in the grant application, and the strings that come with it aren't onerous, we could pursue that. And if it looks like that would be too much of a challenge, we can certainly look at potential to do it within our existing the set aside we have for implementation that was to be determined. So I think either way, we would be looking to try to accomplish this so that future rounds of the safe streets and roads for all, the capital projects, we're positioning our communities to be able to go after this.
Okay, all right. Regarding federal legislation, I have a question. Is the rules making completed yet? Because I think the rules making was going to be help determine how funds are going to be distributed, and maybe some of these paths would be increased along the way.
So the rulemaking is not complete yet, and what's happening is the different programs, they all have their own separate rulemaking. There's not one comprehensive rulemaking.
Okay.
So some guidelines were put out for the carbon reduction program that, you know, would lead to rulemaking. There is, what else is out there active right now? But they're coming out in pieces, because if you recall, any of the new programs, DOT staff couldn't even start working on them until the budget was approved in March, because the continuing resolutions only approved funding for programs that existed already. One of the things that we're finding, you know, the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law created a lot of expectations to be a flood of new money. That's not necessarily down to the regions. If we look at our TIF development, or you know, as we're developing the next TIF, the funds that are distributed to the states by formula and then distributed to the regions by formula have not seen significant increase yet. Several of the programs have not released that funding yet, but it's the authorizations, not appropriation, but so we know how much will come to New York State, but there's not necessarily a defined amount to come to say our region yet. There's a few programs that require pieces to be spent in a large urban area. For example, that carbon reduction program for federal fiscal year 22, there's about $1.2 million that has to be spent in the Rochester large urban area. But we still, we're waiting on NISOT main office to determine, well, how are they even going to roll out a carbon reduction program with the statewide funds they have available? I think somewhere in the neighborhood of $94 million for the current federal fiscal year. They want to be able to do that in a coordinated approach. So, like I said, even if the rulemaking is done at the federal level, how the state is going to distribute funds isn't necessarily figured out yet. And we're, again, at the regional level, we've not seen a surge in funding that we would hope. A lot of the programs are discretionary, whether that means discretionary in Washington or discretionary in Albany. So the money's still on the horizon.
Okay, that's the,
Yeah.
I think there was some expectation there could be additional funding for.
Yeah, it's the funding is out there, but it's not flown here yet.
Yes. Okay. All right, any other questions of Jim on the federal legislative funding update? Okay, other GTC matters?
I don't have anything.
All right. Public engagement highlights. Gloria will enlighten us here.
Yes, really, we just went through most of them. Each member agency, talked about the great work that they're doing. So it's really great to see that. So I popped a couple of them there on the highlight slide. But continue to keep letting me know if I can help cross promote or just try to help get the word out on some of the good work. And the city active transportation, I'll add that one for next time. But good work is going on.
Okay. Great, thank you, Lori. All right, member agency and other partner updates.
Oh, that's just some of the other public outreach things that have been happening from other agencies. So if others have other things, let me know, or if you want to, we can add it to the list. But those are a couple of the things that we wanted to give a shout out for doing a good job, passing out the information on these things.
And certainly if anybody has anything today that they want to add to the mix.
All right, great, thank you. Great, brings us up to new business. New business.
I don't have anything to present.
Any other agency? Hearing none. Brings us to our second public forum. Is there any questions or comments the public attendees would have for the committee as a result of our meeting today?
I know we have been monitoring the backside of the public input page, and we did have at least 16 to 25 people view the meeting either by phone or mobile device or computer. So thanks to everyone that joined us and for leaving a note to let us know that you were here, but no specific comments.
All right, thank you, Lori. Okay, hearing no other items to come before us, then I would offer that we are adjourned.
Next meeting.
Yeah, so the next meeting being July 14th, 2022 at the Monroe County Fleet Center. Any items you have for that meeting, please have to GTC no later than Friday, July 1st.
And please, we want to be hard with that Friday because the following Monday is Independence Day. The office is closed. We have one less day to put our meeting materials together for distribution.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Enjoy the summer.